So, since the last 7-8 years, I have very actively been involved in animal rescue because I relate to their faces and their suffering more than anything else. So, we all know the condition of animals, how dismal, how torturous. We know about Jallikattu, we know about these kind of, mad animal sports, brutal sports, dog fights and bullfights and stuff. So, how do we resolve all this? How do we resolve this? What's your take? Because I've been actively been there rescuing and feeding and taking care and stuff, and it's a massive juggernaut and sometimes depressing also to see how it is right from the slaughter to everybody in my family is a non-vegetarian except for me, so every time they all come over and so there's this debate every time. So how do we again, I know it does boil down to them.
You see, it's very simple. The way our bodies are, we can take in animal flesh. The fact is, there is nothing in your body that does not want animal flesh. You can bring up a child on 60-70% meat and fish and egg and this kind of diet, and the child can grow up into a physically strong and mentally active human being. It's very possible. So Prakriti, this physical nature, has no objection to humans eating flesh, just as Prakriti has no objection to a lion killing a deer for food. We may keep saying, oh, it is not good, this, that, forget it. Meat eaters in general, you may find, are sturdier, taller, all those things. Yes, of course, we know that meats are not good for the body. We also know the health benefits of veganism. We know all those things, but still, the majority of the world consumes flesh copiously and is still more or less healthy. If you look at Nobel Prize winners, more than 90% of them would be flesh eaters. So it's not as if they are just doing physically well, they are doing materially and intellectually well as well, right? So, and if you compare non-meat eaters, vegetarians or vegans, to flesh eaters, you may even find that the flesh eaters are more prosperous.
Because, yeah.
Right? The West is more prosperous and the West is largely meat eating. So there is no material argument against flesh consumption. First of all, let's get that straight. You cannot convince someone of health benefits. You cannot convince someone of prosperity. You cannot convince someone of mental health. All those arguments have very little weight, and that's why those arguments have largely failed, right? You go and tell someone that meat eating is not good for you, and the doctors say that. Well, that's true. In one particular position, the doctor will tell you avoid red meat. In another position, the same doctor will tell you eggs are very good for you. Oh, this kid is underweight, give him chicken soup. So medical science is quite equivocal on that, right? You cannot very unambiguously declare that medical science is against flesh consumption. because it is not. What is it then that would make a person quit harassing animals?
Whether in the form of jallikattu or these
Whether in the
adventure
form of
sports.
jallikattu or a leather belt or a shiny purse or a fur coat or milk tea or of course flesh or zoos
Zoos, yes, please.
or pets or so many other forms of exploitation, or even the things that we do to stray dogs. What would convince a person to not do all those things? You cannot have, remember, any material argument. Yes, there are a lot of material arguments, of course I know, I have been into this since long, but none of those material arguments clinch the day for you. They are not decisive. They can make you think, but they will not force you into submission. You cannot have a final argument that you present to a flesh eater and he will turn vegetarian in a flash. That's not going to happen.
They have such creative ways of arguments.
And many of their arguments are
Very creative.
factually not misplaced. When they say those things, they are factually not misplaced. So what is it that makes a person just do away with all this nonsense and violence? The argument cannot be material. The argument has to be related to your identity as a suffering consciousness. When you realize who you are, then you will not do things that hurt you. I am suffering, and I am suffering because I do not love myself enough. Had I loved myself enough, I would have taken care of myself. I am suffering in the inner way, the inner way. That animal is so much like me. That animal is conscious. So much like me, so much like me. If I can exploit that animal, if I can wreak suffering on that animal, I can do the same to myself. The more I am violent towards that animal, the more I am violent towards consciousness itself. Because remember, it is a mark of low consciousness to consider consciousness as fragmented. Please get the flow of the whole thing. I am suffering because my consciousness is lowly. It is a characteristic of lowly consciousness to think that my consciousness is different from your consciousness.
Or that of a plant or that of
Exactly, exactly. The very otherness is a characteristic of low consciousness. So I am already suffering because my consciousness is low. That is making me live in hell. And because of my low consciousness, I think that that dog or that goat or that chicken is a separate, totally isolated, totally entity that I can slaughter without any repercussions on my own well-being. That's a mark of my own lowness. Now if I slaughter that, I am just extending, reinforcing my lowness, therefore my suffering. It is a mark of high consciousness to understand that consciousness is not fragmented. The thing within that bird is the same as the thing within me. Not only the same, it is one. Therefore, if I hurt the thing within the bird, I am hurting the thing within me. I don't want to hurt myself, therefore I am not going to hurt the bird. Are you getting it? So only when you are greatly interested in your own inner well-being will you quit flesh consumption or animal harassment or cruelty. Otherwise you will continue and you will have 1,000 reasons, several of them very difficult to argue against. Realization of one's own true identity and depth in wisdom. This is the only way exploitation of environment and cruelty towards all living forms is going to stop or reduced. Otherwise, it's going to continue. What is bad is that even those who are vegetarian are usually vegetarian for very flimsy reasons. I am born in a Brahmin family or a Jain family or some other reason, therefore I don't eat meat. Now this is such a shallow reason, it will just yield any time. Yield to pressures, yield to circumstances, yield to company. I'm a college going boy and it's a thing in my modern circle to be vegan, therefore I am vegan. Without having any spiritual core, I am vegan. Now this kind of veganism is going to be very short lived, it's not going to work. Plus that fellow is going to remain violent in spite of being vegan. And if you are violent, then that violent is going to seep into your relationship with animals in some way or the other. You may not be an active flesh consumer, but you would still be contributing to animal cruelty in some way or the other because the violence within you has not abated. So the only way we can address this this violence in the relationship between man and animals or man and woman, man and man, this entire issue of relationship is by addressing the question of identity. Unless we realize who we are, if we think of ourselves as men, women, rich, poor, young, old, we will stay very distant from the truth. Doesn't matter what your gender is, how much money you have, which caste you come from, you and I are the same because you have sleepless nights, I have sleepless nights, you have nightmares, I have nightmares, you do not know what you want, I do not know what I want. Unless we realize we are all one in our suffering, unless we look into a dog's eyes and see our own pain, it will be very difficult to stop us from hurling a stone at that dog. You have got this chicken and you have the knife in your hand. You look at the chicken, and if you cannot see something that's just from within you, you just cannot see almost your own face there. If you cannot see that being is as much afraid of death as you are, you will slaughter. You will slaughter. Morality and idealism are too small to work against ignorance. Ignorance is a mighty thing. The only thing mightier than ignorance is the light of truth. Maya is no lightweight. She trumps everything except the truth, the reality. So if we want to counter Maya through moralistic arguments and these modern ideologies and such things, we will fail. The person is a vegan, but he wants a big house for himself. The person is a vegan and he wants a big house for himself. And of course, in the house, there's going to be no leather, no fur. And the house is big. Hello, sir. How are you vegan? Where is all the electricity going to come from? Don't you know what causes the destruction of forests? You are indirectly contributing to the destruction of forests and you call yourself vegan. How? The fellow is a vegan, but believes that climate change is a hoax. What kind of veganism is this? We will remain cruel because there is nothing in our physical nature that forbids cruelty. In fact, whenever I speak about animal cruelty, people retort by saying that, but even the lion kills the deer, and that's quite a revelation, because that fellow is equating himself with the animal,
with the predator.
In Prakriti, we all are predators. Even the deer is a predator. So, the fellow is saying, I am not a conscious being, I am an animal being. I am just like the lion, and if the lion can kill, I too can kill. As long as your identity is that of the physical being, which is the animal being, you will kill. Only when you realize that you are not going to be satisfied remaining the animal being, will you acknowledge that you are the conscious being beyond the animal? Then you will say, I will not do what the animal does, because doing what the animal does is not going to satisfy me. What the animal does is for the animal. I am not the animal, therefore I cannot follow the ways of the animal. I'll do what a suffering consciousness must do, and a suffering consciousness can hardly kill and expect freedom from suffering. I'm suffering. I'm waiting outside the doctor's cabin, and what do I do there? I shoot lizards. The doctor is not going to be happy with that.
So if we are all a part of the same consciousness, so when Raman Maharshi says that there are no others, or when Osho says मन की आकांक्षाओं का विस्तार ही संसार है, how do we I understand that all you can do is be a good human and try to inculcate all the facts of consciousness into your being and around wherever you are. How do you reconcile when these two stalwarts say these kind of things? I mean, if I have to tell it to a 5-year-old.
No, the 5-year-old probably already understands it intuitively.
Or say an 11-year-old.
Depends on how badly distorted the 11-year-old is.
Yeah.
So it's not difficult to help them see that thing. No? They talk to dogs. They play with rabbits.
They're always they're living it, right? They're already living it.
They don't go to the rabbit and wriggle their necks. You won't have seen a 5 or 11-year-old doing that, right? Because there is already an innate realization that the stuff and me are the same. In fact, in children's shows or comics or cartoons, you'll always find animals talking. This anthropomorphization itself suggests that kids see the same consciousness in animals as they do in themselves.
Or nature or anywhere else, true.
Or in nature. Even trees have names. Even trees have names. Even toys have names. Huh?
Yeah.
So, it's not that difficult to see. It's just that when your mind is dominated by greed and lust and hunger, then you choose not to see these obvious things. I want to kill that goat because of my ideology or hunger or religious values, whatever, some nonsense. I will choose not to see what's there in the goat's eyes. It's a choice made. It's a deliberate choice towards self-delusion. If I look into the goat's eyes, I cannot slaughter the goat. Therefore, I'll look elsewhere and just...
That's why many of my relatives also say कि मैं कटते हुए नहीं देख पाती हूँ, लेकिन जब कटते हुए ना देखूँ तो खा लेती हूँ. I'm like,
This... Do you see this?
Yeah.
What is this? This is... You are cheating yourself in the worst possible way, and you expect life to be kind to you. You expect not to be cheated by others. If you have grown such expertise in deception, be prepared to be deceived now.
Amazing. Talking about these random happenings, as you said that, you know, जाका गला तुम काटी हो फिर वो काटे तुम्हार. Kabir said it very rightly.